What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, April 28th, 2026, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 14:38 Eastern Time here in the United States, and I wanted to update you guys on the latest with Iran and other breaking news from around the world. So right now, this afternoon, we have some strategic aircraft airborne over the U.S. Interestingly, we have a nuke sniffer plane and a high priority reconnaissance plane airborne over the upper Midwest. It's pretty unusual to see both of these airborne at the same time, so I'm not sure what's going on here. But at the same time, we also have a nuclear war command and control plane off the coast of Virginia Beach. It took off from Patuxent River, and you can see it's doing these long loops here right off the continental shelf. And this typically means that they're getting ready to transmit nuclear codes, also known as emergency action messages. So potentially the U.S. is preparing for military action in Iran, potentially this week or in the coming days. It's very unusual to see all of these planes airborne at the same time. And Trump is reportedly unhappy with Iran's latest proposal to end the war because it delays talks on Iran's nuclear program and also requires the U.S. to lift the blockade of Iran. This was reported by multiple sources. And mediators in Pakistan expect to receive a revised Iranian proposal in the coming days, with further progress in negotiations depending on whether the revised proposal is more acceptable to the U.S. So guys, it's just a waste of time. Iran does not want to talk about their nuclear weapons and nuclear development, and they want the U.S. to lift the blockade, and they want basically all their maximalist demands, and the U.S. is not going to back down. So it's just round and round in a circle constantly with these negotiations. Nothing's going to change. So it's just, in my opinion, a delay. The Trump administration is just trying to buy time to resupply all the forces in the Middle East, because we've expended so many missiles in the first round of the war. And if Trump is going to do a second round, he's going to need to resupply all the forces there. So the past couple of weeks, he's been buying time. And every single day, we've been seeing a massive amount of U.S. military cargo planes going down to the Middle East from Ramstein every single day, 24/7. And here we have a screenshot from just this afternoon. You can see well over half a dozen C-17s going down to Jordan and Israel and points in the Middle East. Also multiple aerial refuelers this afternoon airborne over Israel and Jordan. So all the while during these peace talks with Iran, we've been moving a massive amount of equipment back into the Middle East to resupply those stocks. If we were serious about peace, why would we be doing that? Okay, so clearly preparations for a round two. And officials say the U.S. will continue talks with Iran this week, with the White House expected to respond to their proposals and possibly present counter proposals this week. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But like I said, I'm not getting my hopes up or anything. And Reuters reported today that Iraqi security forces fired on a drone that was hovering over Baghdad's green zone. So if you're not aware of the green zone, that's the area in Baghdad where all of the embassies and consulates are located. So potentially Iranian proxy force drone targeting one of the embassies there. Very serious. Also, there are unconfirmed reports that a fourth U.S. aircraft carrier is now on its way to the Middle East. That has been unconfirmed, but we do know for sure that there are now 3 U.S. aircraft carriers in the Middle East and within striking distance of Iran. And this is the first time, I believe, since 2003, since the invasion of Iraq, that we've had 3 aircraft carriers in the region. So let that sink in, okay? Very serious movement, and potentially a 4th aircraft carrier on the way. And an IDF intelligence briefing to the Israeli Parliament Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee said that senior intelligence officials in Israel stated that Iran has partially restored its ballistic missile array. They also stated that the Iranian supreme leader is still alive, the son of Ayatollah Khomeini, Mujtaba Khomeini. There were some rumors that he was killed, but he's still alive. But they're saying that Iran has restored its ballistic missile array partially so far. And according to Kepler, a real-time market intelligence agency specializing in maritime logistics, they estimate that Iran has enough unused oil storage capacity for 12 to 22 days worth of production, meaning that once these storage sites are used, they will have to cut oil production. They state that up until the U.S. blockade, Iran's oil exports were largely unaffected by the war, exporting roughly 1.85 million barrels per day, which is now down to 567,000 barrels per day, with loading of Iranian crude down 70% since the start of the U.S. blockade. Okay, so the U.S. is trying to strain Iran with this blockade. That's why they're doing this. Okay, they're not just blockading the Strait of Hormuz, they're blockading everything, the entire Persian Gulf, basically all of Iran's ports and coastline. Okay, so they're trying to squeeze Iran and force them to submit, but I don't think it's going to work, because Iran is like, the leadership there, they're like the Taliban. They're fanatical Islamic fundamentalist type characters, and even without any funding, they're going to continue to fight. Okay. And the Wall Street Journal said Iran is attempting to transport oil via trains to China, so they're now using land routes to move oil to China. But 12 to 22 days worth of production, that's very limited, so Iran could be facing a crisis very soon. And Iranian attacks on U.S. bases across the Middle East have caused far more damage than the Trump administration has publicly acknowledged. And an Iranian fighter jet was able to bomb at least one U.S. base, NBC News reported on Saturday, citing unnamed U.S. officials. The administration has attempted to cover up the damage to U.S. bases in the war, and has gone as far as requesting that Planet Labs and other satellite imagery companies black out war images, making it difficult to ascertain the damage. The NBC report said that the Pentagon has also kept the information on the damage from Congress. No one knows anything, and it's not for lack of asking, a Republican congressional aide told the outlet. We have been asking for weeks and not getting specifics, even as the Pentagon is asking for a record high budget. Wow, pretty crazy. Iranian missile and drone attacks have targeted U.S. bases in 7 Middle Eastern countries: Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iraq, Jordan, and Qatar. U.S. officials said that an Iranian F-5 fighter jet was able to bomb the U.S. base at Camp Buehring in Kuwait, despite it having air defenses, marking the first time in many years that an enemy fixed-wing aircraft struck a U.S. military installation. Wow, many years, guys. The U.S. armed Iran with Northrop Grumman F-5 fighter jets before the 1979 Islamic Revolution, and Iran has developed its own version of the aircraft known as the Hessa Kausar. Kuwait was also the site of a March 1st Iranian drone attack that killed 6 U.S. Army Reserve soldiers and injured more than 20. The drone targeted a makeshift operations center in Port Shaba, and according to survivors of the attack who spoke to CBS News, the facility was unprotected despite claims from U.S. War Secretary Pete Hegseth that the drone was able to get through air defenses. The NBC News report said that the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet in Bahrain sustained serious damage, and that other U.S. bases in the country also suffered serious damage that is likely repairable. The report also cited the American Enterprise Institute, a Washington-based think tank, which said it assessed Iran hit more than 100 targets across 11 bases, and that the repairs would cost at least $5 billion. Wow. And this update was sponsored by NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply is doing a $100 discount on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the discount, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com. The link is in the description down below. The normal price for their 3-month kit is $800, and they're selling it for $700. That's $700 for 3 months of emergency food, up to 2,000 calories per day for 3 months, and it has a shelf life of 25 years, all packed within rugged, watertight buckets that don't take up a lot of space. You don't have to worry about rotating anything. You don't have to monitor expiration dates. You don't need a massive place to keep all your food. You can fit all this food in a tiny closet in a studio apartment. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get $100 off the NYPrepper Supply 3-month emergency food supply, and the link is in the description below this video. Though the number doesn't account for some of the radars, weapon systems, and other equipment that was destroyed. And this is not including, okay, remember the radar that was hit in Qatar, the U.S. early warning radar? One of our critical early warning radars in the Middle East to detect ballistic missile launches from Iran. Well, that was taken out. Okay, it was a phased array radar, very expensive, and Iran hit it with a drone, okay? And Vice President Vance has privately raised doubts about the Pentagon's portrayal of the war in Iran, especially claims that U.S. weapons stockpiles remain strong. He's concerned key munitions may be running low, which could weaken U.S. readiness for other conflicts. Pete Hegseth and military leaders insist supplies are robust and the campaign has been highly successful, but internal assessments suggest Iran still retains much of its military capability, and U.S. forces have used a significant portion of critical weapons. Interesting. And Sweden is now warning of an upcoming aircraft fuel shortage due to the situation with the Strait of Hormuz. And the U.S. Energy Secretary said navigation in the Strait of Hormuz can resume without removing all of the mines there. So what he's saying is that they can just clear a path. They don't have to clear the whole strait. They just clear a small path, just enough for the ships to go through, okay, while they work to clear the rest of the Strait of Hormuz. And we're hearing that there's a congestion of 10 Iranian oil tankers off the port of Chabahar due to the U.S. blockade, and that's this afternoon according to tanker trackers. And U.S. Central Command announced that Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit boarded a commercial vessel, the Blue Star 3, in the Arabian Sea earlier today, suspecting it of attempting to transit to Iran in violation of the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports. The ship was released and warned not to travel through the Strait of Hormuz to Iran. And the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the Strait of Hormuz is an economic nuclear weapon that Iran is using against the world. And the Israeli military destroyed Hezbollah's largest underground tunnel to date in southern Lebanon, a 2-kilometer city of refuge complex located 11 kilometers from the Israeli border. Allegedly built and funded by Iran, the tunnel contained living quarters and assembly areas capable of housing hundreds or even thousands of fighters, and was designed as a springboard for Radwan force attacks into Israel. Wow. All right, so 2 kilometers long, the longest tunnel that Israel has found in southern Lebanon. Absolutely insane. And the Israeli Broadcasting Authority is reporting that after the expiration of the 2-week negotiation deadline with Lebanon, Israel plans to intensify operations against Hezbollah. And a Russian super yacht linked to billionaire Alexei Mordashov, a key ally of Vladimir Putin, sailed through the Strait of Hormuz overnight, April 24th to the 25th, despite an ongoing blockade. So clearly the Iranians are giving the green light to the Russians to go through the Strait of Hormuz. And we have a very serious situation unfolding in Russia. The Ukrainians hit the Tuapse oil refinery yesterday, and it's still burning today. And look at the footage here from this morning in Russia. Massive flames. Okay, this is one of Russia's largest oil refineries that the Ukrainians hit with drones. So Putin is definitely not going to be happy about that. But the situation is so serious that they've declared an emergency around the entire area, and they're creating safe zones and evacuation zones around this refinery. And check this out. There's literal oil, burning oil, spilling into the streets of nearby towns, okay? So expect a big retaliation from Russia on Ukraine this week in the coming days or hours. And an unidentified drone flew onto the roof of a multi-story building in the center of Chisinau, the capital of Moldova. Residents of the building were urgently evacuated, and the drone broke into pieces after colliding with the building. So very, very strange. Could have been a Russian drone. And Ukrainian attack drones successfully struck the Tuapse oil refinery. And at least 200 Border Patrol agents are being moved from the northern and southern U.S. border to the town of Laredo, Texas, to address a surge of illegal immigrants attempting to get into the country over there. So some kind of situation going on there in Laredo. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I wanted to just thank Steve Quayle for sharing out my video this morning on his website. Thank you, Steve Quayle, for continually shouting out my channel, sharing out my videos on his page. Check out stevequayle.com. Great guy. He's been around a long time. He's, legendary. So I'm sure a lot of you guys know who he is. But I might be back later on tonight with a live update. And until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.